And welcome to another holiday edition of the Friday Football Hangout. I'm Dave Morris. Warm and pleasant good morning to you from the Oklahomans video studio on a cold, dreary day outside in downtown Oklahoma City. We're just hours away from Bedlam football, which will be 7 p.m. Saturday night in Stillwater as the Sooners go up to face the Cowboys. I am joined now on our Google Hangout by a cast of thousands from the Oklahoman Sports Department. Mike Sherman, sports editor. We have Kyle Fredrickson, Ryan Aber, and Barry Tramel, who, by the way, looks by far the most cozy on this hangout. I'm assuming from his home, because I think I just saw a roaring fire in the background there. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Doing great.
Well, I need the roaring fire because I'm not sure my heat's working. So I like the fire.
Nothing wrong with that. Sherman, let's start with you, sports editor of the Oklahoman. You are on the road. What's the road conditions look like where you are? And where are you, by the way?
We're south of Kansas City by about an hour and a half. We had to bypass Wichita. We're told that there's ice on the ground in Wichita. So we're trying to stay south, going down through Joplin and then across to Tulsa. Hopefully that'll get us back to Oklahoma or back to Oklahoma City area about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Just steady rain, very cold. There's been rainier days, there's been colder days, but I haven't really experienced many colder and rainy days. I mean, it's cold out here.
You know, I developed my love of coffee from covering sporting events, and we've all been there before, freezing, whether it's in the sidelines or press box. And Saturday, the windy, cold conditions will certainly be at play. Let's dive into this OU-OSU Bedlam football on Saturday night. Barry, I'll start with you. The college football playoff rankings came out. OU jumped up to number 3. OU is short of a berth if it wins Bedlam on Saturday.
Well, assured is probably too strong, but it looks awfully well. It looks awfully good for the Sooners. When the committee moved OU up to 3rd, moved Notre Dame down to 6th, big buffer between them. They both have the same kind of game on Saturday, road game against a really good opponent, ranked. Stanford's ranked 9th, I think, and then Oklahoma State's ranked 11th. So, as long as the Sooners win in Stillwater, I gotta believe that they'll be in the top 4.
Ryan, what's the mood in Norman with the Sooners? You were at the press conferences this week. What are they thinking heading into this? And by the way, how healthy are the Sooners going into this?
Well, it seems like they're reasonably healthy. There were questions about Baker Mayfield, Samaje Perine, and Joe Mixon after all 3 of those guys went down last week with injuries. Bob Stoops just released a statement just a little bit before we started that said Baker Mayfield and Samaje Perine had practiced all week. We knew they had practiced early in the week, but there's always question about setbacks, especially with Baker Mayfield and the concussion issue. Joe Mixon started practicing again Wednesday, so it looks like those 3 guys are going to be good to go. As far as the mood around the Sooners, it's anxious would be the word I would use. This is a team that certainly still remembers the way that they played early in the season, and in that Texas loss that still really stings them. They remembered what happened last year in this game, and looking forward to getting another shot at redemption on both of those fronts.
Kyle, we'll bring you in now for the OSU side of things, and what needs to happen for OSU to get back in the playoff picture, and how is the mood in Stillwater?
Well, a lot of things got to happen if they're going to get in the back of that playoff picture. Obviously, a Big 12 champion, with some big wins over TCU and Oklahoma helps their resume. But there's a lot of one-loss teams out there who the committee might look a little bit kinder upon based on their non-conference schedule. That's always going to be kind of the knock on this OSU team. But Mike Gundy said it from the summer. This team's goal year in and year out, first and foremost, is to win the Big 12. And, should Baylor lose to TCU tonight, they're going to have that opportunity if they win Bedlam. So those goals are still in reach. And, that kind of mirrors a little bit of what the Cowboys were thinking on Monday when we talked to them, players and coaches both. While they were definitely saddened and bummed out about that Baylor loss, still a lot to play for and a lot on the line. And they get the Sooners at home, in an environment where they figure should benefit the Cowboys with a raucous home crowd.
Barry, Mike, I'll throw it your way. What about OSU and their playoff chances?
Well, I think if the Cowboys, Baylor's got to lose. Cowboys aren't getting in without the designation of the Big 12 championship. But if TCU beats Baylor and then OSU can win Bedlam, which Bedlam would in then that case become the de facto Big 12 title game, well, then OSU's at least in the discussion. And they would be in the discussion with the winner of the Stanford-Notre Dame game, advantage Notre Dame. Stanford would be an interesting debate. But really, if it's just those two games, if Bedlam and Baylor TCU goes Oklahoma State's way, I think they're going to be in the top 5 in the discussion. And they're going to be on the backside of that, but they would at least have a shot. And that's really all you can ask for at this point. So pray for the Horned Frogs tonight and then take care of business tomorrow. And the Cowboys at least have a chance.
You know, Mike, the college football playoffs fairly new the way they do it right now. Your thoughts, your analysis on a team like OSU, just a couple weeks left in the season outside the top 10, could actually still be part of the discussion?
Well, you know, Barry's written as well on this as anybody in the country. I mean, his columns and analysis and blogs on this are must-reads. And he's broken it down. OSU's schedule is the millstone around their neck. Their non-conference schedule with Central Arkansas, Central Michigan. Those games, Dave, they're going to be the things that cost them. That's why Barry says they're going to be on the back end of the discussion. Now, it's great for the state of Oklahoma and for Oklahoma State to have two teams that will be in the discussion. But clearly, OSU is going to have to change its non-conference schedule. Kyle knows about this, and they're addressing it in the future. But they got caught short this year. They got caught short this year with a team that was good, a team that had its big games at home, and so when they're splitting hairs, the hairs that are going to cost Oklahoma State are the Central Arkansas and Michigan games. They're the reason why the Cowboys had to run the table, had to beat Baylor last Saturday, and the margin for error is too great at this point. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be in discussion anymore.
Well, you're right. For the local football fans, it is great that OU and OSU are still in the discussion. But, Barry, from an overall college football fan, again, with 2 weeks left, there's still a lot of teams in play here. Are you liking what you're seeing from the way the college football playoffs are developing?
Well, I think the interest has only mushroomed, and we had a lot of interest. You go back to the poll days, to the BCS days, people were infatuated with it, but it's off the charts now. And just the excitement level and the debate level, I mean, I think it's been a big boon to college football. So I think it's a good thing. There's always going to be at least one major conference left out. Personally, I don't see how that's a catastrophe. So that just makes for more debate and more determination. So I think it's been a great thing for college football, and I think it continues to be.
The Friday Football Hangout here on NewsOK.com, a Google Hangout with some of the sports guys. Sports editor Mike Sherman is joining us. We have columnist Barry Tramel and OU and OSU beat writers Ryan Aber and Kyle Fredrickson and Ryan. We're talking about the wintry weather-like conditions for Bedlam and Stillwater. How does it affect these teams? Let's start with the Sooners, Ryan. How does it affect the Sooners?
Well, with Baker Mayfield playing and back at quarterback, that's certainly a good thing for the Sooners as far as how they would handle bad weather. Now, a couple years ago, it was really cold, but the wind really dropped off right before the game started, and it really didn't affect things. And it looks like there's a chance that at least that's the case again. Now, if the freezing rain starts coming down, if we got snow and ice, then it becomes a little bit more for them to handle. I think that benefits OU though, because Oklahoma can run the ball pretty well. They've had great success with Samaje Perine recently. Their offensive line has taken steps forward in the last 5 or 6 games, and Joe Mixon gives them a little change of pace back there as well, as opposed to Oklahoma State, who struggled to run the ball for most of the year. So I think the worse the weather gets, the more benefit there is for the Sooners.
Kyle, we were looking at some file footage from previous Bedlam games there. How does this wintry weather affect the Cowboys, the home team?
Yeah, Ryan said it, hit it right in the head in terms of who this would appear to favor in terms of style of play, being that if the run game has to be relied on more, I mean, the Sooners are clearly in the advantage there. But I think for that to really have to happen, I think it's the wind that has to play the biggest factor, because when we're talking about the possibility for snow and rain and even some of that freezing stuff, with the turf that these guys play on nowadays, the actual field surface doesn't really change that much. I asked Mike Gundy at his press conference, right afterwards, if they'll need to change out cleats or kind of adjust for the playing surface. But these things are so advanced now that that they're able to kind of drain pretty effectively and kind of rule out some of those external factors that might impact the game. But if it does become a driving wind and a driving rain, and they have to run the ball, OSU is going to struggle because, especially with bringing J.W. Walsh, the backup quarterback, in for those zone read sets, the Sooners are going to know exactly what's coming in those situations, and I just can't imagine Walsh being all that effective.
Barry, you've seen an awful lot of Bedlam games throughout the years. What are some of your favorite memories of how weather has affected this series?
Well, everybody remembers the Ice Bowl of '85. We've got no chance of conditions like that, which was basically sideways sleet. So that was not a pleasant day. It was literally an ice rink at Lewis Field that night. I think 13 certainly memorable because of the cold, and the guys talked about the way the wind sort of died and made it at least bearable. But I think the function of the teams is really affected when it gets so cold. It's not so much the footing; it's more your hands and your ability to throw and catch and even block to some degree. So I think that's a thing to look at. And when you think about it, we've had fabulous weather all year till last Saturday night when it got chilly for Baylor and TCU in town. So I would look at who can run the ball. OU clearly a better running team. That seems to give the Sooners an advantage. But that to me is going to be the key, is just the ball handling more than the footing. And if you think back to what Kyle said about the field and the turf, much better than it used to be in the old days. 30 years ago in the Ice Bowl, I mean, you literally were tiptoeing. Guys literally couldn't run. We played a football game in this state in which neither team really ran. But I don't mean run the ball. I mean, the players couldn't run because you'd fall down. So we're not going to have that Saturday. It'll look like a football game. It just won't be quite as, it won't be quite as aesthetically pleasing as maybe we would like.
Well, you never know. The weather conditions could certainly make this for a very good game. Both of you guys have segued into our next topic, which is the advantages that OU and the advantages that OSU have coming into this game. And Mike, I'll bring you back in here. Barry and Ryan alluded to OU's running game as being their advantage. What are you looking at for Saturday night's game as an advantage that OU has in this game?
Well, I think that Bob Stoops came out and made a statement about the health of the team today. I saw that right before we came on. I actually wonder about the health of Mason Rudolph, and Kyle could probably tell us some more about this. Gundy addressed it sort of, but remember, Rudolph was hobbling noticeably at the end of the Baylor game. I don't know if that's something he gotten over, but an ankle injury. I think OU's defense is improving right now, and improving at a time when OSU's quarterback doesn't look like he's at full speed. So I'd ask Kyle, what about Mason Rudolph? Do we know anything different about his ankle?
Yeah, I'll just hop right in. I mean, from what Gundy told us on Monday, he called it an ankle sprain and that he was expected to play. There's been some reports surfacing, just kind of internet chatter over the past few days, that he might even have a broken bone in his foot. But is expected to play. So either way, he's going to be playing with some pain on Saturday. You wonder how the cold factors into that. You wonder how well they're going to be able to keep that thing wrapped. And the one area where OSU fans got to be worried is if that limits his mobility. That's one thing that Mason Rudolph does best, just making a couple steps to the side, brushing off a defender, extending the play. If he's unable to do that, that takes away a lot of what this offense is capable of doing, especially in some of those third down situations where we've seen Rudolph be so so effective by scrambling and getting a couple extra seconds and finding that receiver. So that's got to be something OSU fans are concerned about. But, the magic of Bedlam sometimes produces some pretty incredible performances, going back to what Rudolph did in his, just his second ever start on the road in Norman. So we know this is a resilient guy who stepped up in the face of adversity before. He's going to have his opportunity again on Saturday.
So, man in Stillwater, Kyle Fredrickson, been covering the Cowboys all season long. Kyle, let's stick with you for a second. What are some of the other advantages OSU's bringing to the table for this game?
Well, they're lucky to have quite a bit of depth on the defensive side of the ball, and we've talked about it quite a bit through these past few weeks. But it's going to be one of those situations where a lot of these young guys are going to be cycled in and out throughout the game, and trying to defend, the two-headed monster at running back that the Sooners have, and everything that Baker Mayfield's able to do, with his ability to escape defenders and also find people downfield. But the Cowboys have the benefit of at least having the bodies to go in and out there. Defensive fatigue has got to become some type of factor at this point in the season. The Cowboys have played over 360-some snaps over the past 4 games. But with these weather conditions, I don't imagine that OU or OSU approach that 80 or 90 play mark. Just based on some of those weather conditions, the pace of play might slow down a bit. So that might come into the Cowboys' favor. These guys won't have to be on the field as many snaps. And like I mentioned before, when you got Mason Rudolph, you got a young, charismatic quarterback who's really stepped up in big situations. Even being that his health is a little bit iffy, OSU fans got to be glad that they have a guy back there who's been able to stun, kind of the national college football world with his performances. So
he's averaging over 320 yards per game. In fact, I believe he wrote that he would join Brandon Weeden as the only other OSU Cowboy quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards in a season. Weeden did it twice. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Ryan, hey, what are you hearing from the OU coaches about what they're preparing for on OSU's, what they're bringing to the table on OSU's advantages?
I think that a couple of big things stand out, and Kyle talked a lot about Mason Rudolph and J.W. Walsh. The different things that they do is how differently that OU has to prepare for them. Mike Stoops it got a lot of grief last year because of what his defense was. Really have taken huge steps forward this year, but that difference between Rudolph and Walsh is pretty great depending on who's in the game. So they're preparing for both of those guys. And then also the depth of Oklahoma State's receiving core. I think that's strength against strength in this game. OU's secondary has been fantastic this year. I really look for how Zach Sanchez is going to be tested in this game. Jordan Thomas last year was the guy who got picked on. This year, he's the guy that teams are going away from, and that's led to Sanchez being a boom or bust guy. I mean, he's going to step up, make interceptions, but he's also going to get beat downfield. We saw both of those against TCU, and I really think that Sanchez versus Oklahoma State's receiver matchup is going to go a long way toward determining who wins this game on Saturday night up in Stillwater.
Ryan, let's stick with you. We're talking quarterbacks. Let's talk Baker Mayfield and his Heisman Trophy campaign. You wrote the OU hype machine is in full gear. What are they hoping to see out of Baker on Saturday?
Well, a lot of it will depend on his health. Last week when he went down, initially with the head injury, we sort of watched him on the sidelines. They didn't bring him out. They stayed in the game, and that's when he was at his best. Right after that, let him down. They scored on 3 consecutive drives to get a pretty good lead going into halftime before they pulled him with concussion-like symptoms. Found out later he did have a concussion. It appears that he's been all right given the fact that he's practiced every day this week, been at least really close to going full 100% through those practices. But you always wonder about taking a second hit when you've got a concussion recently. We've seen it with guys who've come back either too soon or just come back immediately taking another bad hit, and things go south on him. But if their offensive line can protect well, and if Baker Mayfield's able to stay in this game, then I think he's going to have a good deal of success against Oklahoma State, given what they've been on the back end of their defense.
Barry, does Baker Mayfield have a shot at the Heisman? I saw where ESPN ranked him number 4 currently this week.
Yeah, he's got a shot, but he would need a monster game against Oklahoma State, and then he would need some help. He needs Auburn to shut down Derrick Henry tomorrow in the Alabama Iron Bowl. I don't expect that to happen. So Clemson's got 2 games left. Deshaun Watson is, I think, going to make some big-time hay in those games. I think it's a long shot. I think Baker's got a good chance to get to New York. I don't think he's got a chance, a strong chance to win the trophy.
Mike, how unexpected was it for Baker Mayfield to even be in this discussion at this point?
Totally out of the blue. You know, it reminds me a bit of Jason White's Heisman Trophy candidacy. His knees were shot, but OU is the best team in the country going into that season, and he was the quarterback for the best team in the country. Well, the Sooners were not the best team in the country going in, and he was a former walk-on named. And frankly, those of us who saw him play a little bit here and there at Tech thought, oh, he'll be pretty good. I think he's surpassed everyone's wildest expectations. I think he's been so much fun to watch. And I don't know if that's going to really, if the folks who are going to vote for the Heisman Trophy will know what the people who've been following this team all year know, and that is just all the plays and all the in-between ways he's extended them. The pass, rifle sideline passes to Sterling Sharp, the scrambles and all that. That doesn't show up in a stat sheet, although his stats are tremendous. So whether he wins a Heisman or not, and I don't think I'm with Barry, I don't think he will. I think if Derrick Henry has a big game against Auburn, it's all going to be set up for him to win the Heisman. But Baker Mayfield's had one of the great seasons for Oklahoma quarterbacks. And from an entertainment value, I give him 4 stars.
I was about to say, it looks like he's just enjoying playing college football this season, which is always good to see from any of your athletes. I'll tell you what's fun to watch, though, and that's the valet drivers across the street at the Colcord Hotel. They are hustling today out there in the conditions. Last question, guys. Kyle, I'll start with you. Predictions for Saturday night.
In the paper, I think I had OU winning 42-35. Could be a lot lower scoring if the weather does get bad. But just like we talked about, OU's advantage running the football, I think, is really the difference in this one. And I think that they OU gets the victory and then marches on in the playoff.
Ryan, over to you.
I went with 35-28. I do think the weather will keep the scoring down a little bit below what I would say if the weather is going to be perfect. But like Kyle said, like I said earlier, OU's able to run the ball. Samaje Perine has a big day. Baker Mayfield has a big day. Not quite enough to vault into a Heisman Trophy win, but enough to keep the Sooners in the college football playoff.
Mike Sherman will bring you in for your predictions so you can get the rest of the car back on the internet.
Hey, Dave, I can't remember what the score was, but I had the Sooners winning in a close game. I'm concerned, though, as a staff, whenever we're all one way in the Bedlam game, good things do not happen. I think last year, if you look at our picks, most of us, the overwhelming number of us on the grid, had the Sooners winning that game. It didn't work out that way. 2 years ago in Stillwater, the day of the earthquake, a Ben Grogan field goal that was successful when those things weren't happening. Fake goals for touchdowns went the Sooners' way. Most of us picked the Cowboys. So I have great concern. I do.
Barry, I think as Mike Sherman alluded to there, you picked the Sooners, but what are you expecting to see Saturday night?
Well, I picked the Sooners, and in one part, I think they've played better than Oklahoma State for the plurality of this season. But also, and we're writing about this for Saturday, for whatever reason, Bedlam has not provided a great home field advantage. Teams teams go on the road in this series and play very well. So I don't think, you would think that being at home would be OSU's strongest advantage. I think that was true against TCU. I think that was true against Baylor. I don't think it's true against Oklahoma.
There you have it, another edition of the Friday Football Hangout here on newsok.com. Gentlemen, please be safe. Mike, be safe traveling. And guys, be safe getting to the stadium. Have fun covering the game. Thank you so much for your time today and your analysis. And hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and enjoy the Bedlam football, everybody. One last thing, I will say big thanks to Paige Dillard and Todd Frazier for producing today's show. Enjoy your Black Friday, everyone.